We've been talking in this small lessons. We talked about our duty of competing in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, competing for the hereafter. And today, inshallah, we continuing talking about the subject as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, compete in goodness, in righteousness. The scholar said that competing is the intention and a want in something and love to be ahead in that area among all, and to master it, to be the first, to be ahead, the foremost. And when you have two teams are competing, they are competing for a winner, for one place. And that is the definition of competing, to be one ahead of the others. But the competition that we are talking about is competing for the levels in the hereafter and being in the company of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is the competition that Allah commands and His Prophet teach. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded us that this life, this earthly life, is just a place of competition. And all His creation, regardless of their color, shape, or language, they are all returning to Allah, and Allah is able to gather him in the end in His presence, and at that place, at that time, those who will be ahead and the foremost will be taking their place. So the competition, the real competition in this life, is the righteous deed that will help in the hereafter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what can be translated, wherever you are, Allah will bring you all, that Allah is capable of everything. And He will actually tell you what you used to do and what you used to say. So Allah, preparing us for this competition, told us that our life is days and nights. We should not be absent-minded from what is important and what is the goal is, and what is the destination is. So the believer who realizes that earth is a place of competition, this is the one who inshallah will be among the winners. This person is the one who will not leave a righteous deed or an avenue of collecting rewards unless he use it and take it. So whenever he is invited for goodness, he responds. He responds. So he is always ahead in any avenue of goodness. So in the day of judgment, when everybody will be in front of Allah, it will happen that some will be distinguished, and some will be ahead, and some will be winners, and also some will be loser, and some will be behind. At that moment in the hereafter, people will realize that that what count is deeds, not talk. What count is action and a way of life, not any other monetary or worth earthly winning or earthly riches will matter at the time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran commands us in many verses to compete in goodness and righteousness. And this is as if all people compete in all avenues of competition. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what can be translated, hurry up to forgiveness from your Lord, and heaven, its width is the heavens and the earth. Just its width is the heavens and the earth. And Allah also said, compete to forgiveness from your Lord. That's Surah Al-Hadid, verse 21. So the first verse was hurry up to forgiveness from your Lord, and the second verse was say compete to forgiveness from your Lord. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also told us that He accepts us according to our place in that competition, and where we are in order of finishing the race and finishing the competition itself. So that is the measure in the hereafter. It is not what space or level you are at on earth. That will not matter at the time. So your money and your position will not be of any value at the time. So again, the competition will be to Allah, the competition to the pleasure of Allah, and the pleasure and the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, those who are foremost, and those are the close and near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same measure was put the immigrants from Mecca to Medina who were ahead in migration, and those were among the foremost in their level of reward. And then Allah put the supporter, the Ansar, also according to their support and their endorsement of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Then He put after that the early Muslim, and who followed them with good deed. So He put every group to their level of accomplishment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first and the foremost, those who migrated from Mecca to Medina according to their response to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And then those supporter in Medina, the Muhajirin, the Ansar, who actually also endorsed the Prophet and Islam in different speed and different level. Then third came those who follow after that with goodness and righteousness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarified that in Surah At-Tawbah when He said, those who who were foremost among the immigrants and the supporter Ansar, and those who followed with good deed with Allah, they are happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy and satisfied with them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talked about the benefit of who spend and who give out for the sake of Allah first, and who followed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Hadid, what can be translated, it is not equal among you who spend before the liberation of Mecca and struggle for the sake of Allah. Those have the highest grades and the highest place and highest honor in the eyes of Allah. So with everyone who supported Islam in its early days, according to his place in that support, his value in the eyes of Allah will be bigger. So those who spend before the liberation of Mecca is not the same like the one who spent after the liberation of Mecca. Those who struggle and fight for the sake of Allah is not like those who adopted Islam after, when Islam was victorious and no fighting anymore. So those who were foremost in the hard time in the early days definitely have more value in the eyes of Allah and more goodness in heaven compared to who followed. And the Imam is telling the stories, the stories of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, talking to his companion, who were the companion in Medina, who were talking about his companion in Mecca, and he was saying, you know, what indicate how the early the companion in Medina were among the most foremost in goodness and righteousness compared to the companion who came afterward. And they are all companion of the Prophet, but their time of adopting Islam and their time of endorsing Islam make a difference of who among them is foremost. And the Imam is clarifying also that those who spent before the liberation of Mecca were spending from nothing. They were spending where they were poor and they nothing in their homes. They were spending basically everything they can. But those who spend afterward, with Islam being flourishing and expanding, they were in a more ease of time. That their spending was not as challenging as those who spend when they were deprived and when they were actually have limited income. So many examples glorify those who came ahead of who actually supported Islam in the beginning compared to those who came later on. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about the righteous among his servants, saying they are grades and levels with Allah, and Allah is all knower and seer with what they do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of everything that we do. And the Imam is also remind us of of these rooms in heaven that have the highest, that belong to those who have the highest levels in heaven. That the people of heaven, they will see these rooms above them in a higher grades, in a higher levels, and they are all in heaven. But again, in heaven, everyone will have its place and have its level according to his deed on earth. What is important to understand, that these verses and what like it in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicate that the wise, that the wise who actually is the one who is foremost, more than the one who is follow, and the one who is followed is not the one who is not like the one who follow. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala value people according to their place in goodness and righteousness. So it is not with the strength of the muscles or the body, or the amount of belonging or the good looks. It is a difference of deed and a difference in action. So those who are foremost, again, are praised for what they do and what they accomplished and what they struggled with to support Islam and support righteousness and to stay on the right path. So my dear brother and sister, these verses and all like it that we kind of narrated are in abundance in the Quran. All indicate that the one who is ahead is better than the one which has fallen behind in accomplishing righteousness and good deed. Allah will not place ahead some people over others with the virtue of their beautiful body, cheerful faces, handsome clothes, or what they gather of money. If the race was measured according to these virtues, the winner would not be among the chosen by Allah, because those virtues were not by their action, but it is a gift from their Creator, Allah the Almighty. Allah give him these things. Preference and the higher grades can only be achieved by what the servant of Allah did from good deeds, strong faith, strong conviction, and truthful intention, from clear hearts, from hearts that full of conviction, hearts that full of loyalty to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So my dear brother and sister, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited us to ignore whoever contradict us and attack us, to hurry to repair and build our society with good deed. The question which are remaining, what are the deeds that we would compete in? And that inshallah what we will talk about tomorrow. What kind of a deeds that we need to compete at, and how we compete the good from the wicked, and how we can differentiate between the aggressor and the one who is been oppressed, for example. So it is important to renew faith and belief and conviction in your heart. So when you get into this arena of competition, you will be ready. So a person without a heart, a sincere heart, cannot be ready for any competition and any sacrifices to do good deeds and righteous acts. And the Imam is saying it is like your clothes that gets, after wearing it for a few days, it gets dirty and it gets dusty. Your heart and your faith need renewal, or needs repolishing, so you inshallah will be ready to get into this arena of competition for righteousness and the competition for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So renewing your faith, renewing your conviction, renewing the trust and the total trust in Allah and His Prophet, and being mindful of His order, and mindful of what He ordained, and mindful with what He forbid. That what will make you ready and make you eligible to be in this arena of competition with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was narrated that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that faith, belief, actually will be created in your heart as your new clothes. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to renew your faith in your heart, as you renew your clothes, as you renew your garment. When it gets dirty or when it gets dusty, you should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to renew your faith in your heart. And the same apply to reciting the Quran, as reciting the Quran will help renew the conviction. It was narrated that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that Iman, conviction, will be created or will be given in your heart as you again wear a new garment. So recite the Quran, recite the Quran, renew the faith and the conviction in your heart. And this process of renewing your faith and your conviction in your heart with supplication and reciting the Quran will not really materialize unless you are actually have a deep and sincere wants to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in heaven, and sincere intention and sincere wish to be in as close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in heaven. And in this area, Allah said, let people compete, let people compete to be in the highest places in heaven, in the closeness, as much as close they can to Allah, in His presence in heaven, inshallah. So it is a wish, a hope, a desire to be with Allah in His heaven, to be with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in heaven. That is the way. So it is supplication, it is reciting the Quran, and then inshallah have deep desire to be with Allah and His Prophet in heaven. May Allah benefit us from reciting the Quran and make us among the righteous who compete for Allah's heaven inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum, brother and sister.